Vivian Calloway sat by the window with a blanket over her lap and a cup of tea growing cold beside her. The late afternoon light touched her face gently, the way her husband used to when he came home early from work. It had been 5 years since Edric passed. They used to dream about growing old together, planting tomatoes in the backyard, painting on weekends, spoiling grandchildren. But now it was just her in that house full of quiet. The only sounds came from the ticking clock, the rustle of leaves outside, and the memories that never really left. Her son, Silas, hadn't visited in almost 7 months. He used to come by every other weekend when his kids were small. Now he only called when he needed something, a quick loan, help with taxes, advice he barely listened to. But still, Vivian answered every time. A mother doesn't stop loving, even when it hurts. That afternoon, she looked at a painting propped against the wall. She had taken it out of the closet earlier. It was a peaceful scene, a lake with golden light reflecting off the water. Edric had painted it himself in the final months of his life. It wasn't fancy or modern, it was soft and quiet like him. In the corner, he had signed it, EC. Behind the canvas, hidden inside the wooden frame, was something most people wouldn't even think to check for. An envelope. Inside it, a $12 million bearer bond. Vivian still remembered the night Edric handed it to her. He was already sick, but his eyes were bright and calm. "Don't give this to Silas just yet," he had said. "Wait. Give it to him when the time feels right. And make sure it comes from me, not from money." Vivian hadn't touched it in years. She kept it hidden in the back of the hallway closet, behind winter coats no one wore anymore. She dusted around it sometimes, checked to see if the frame was still tight, if the envelope inside was still sealed. She had no idea when the right time would be. But now, something inside her said, it's time. Maybe it was the way Silas had sounded over the phone last week, stressed, exhausted, short-tempered. He had lost his job 3 months ago and wasn't handling it well. His wife, Delilah, had been pressuring him about money. And all Vivian wanted to do was help, but not in the usual way. Not with another wire transfer. Not with another quick fix. She wanted to give him something that mattered. A piece of his father. A second chance. So she wrapped the painting in brown paper, added bubble wrap around the corners, and included a small handwritten note. "This was your father's. He painted it for you. He wanted you to have it when you needed it most. Mom." She took a taxi to the courier office and sent it to Silas's apartment in the city. She paid extra for same-day delivery. She didn't tell him. She wanted it to be a surprise. That night she waited. She sat by the phone with her tea. She checked it 3 times to make sure the ringer was on. Hours passed. The sun went down. The tea went cold again. No call. She told herself maybe he was out. Maybe he hadn't seen the package yet. Maybe tomorrow. But just after 9 p.m., the phone finally rang. She smiled as she answered it. "Silas." His voice came through loud, annoyed, already angry. "Are you serious, Mom?" She blinked. "What's wrong? You sent me a painting?" Her heart dropped. "It was your father's," she said softly. "He made it. For you. And what am I supposed to do with it?" he snapped. "Hang it up in the middle of my living room? Monica says it looks like something from a garage sale." Vivian held her breath. I thought you were finally going to do something useful. We're drowning over here, and you send a dusty old canvas." There was a pause. "You're just old and useless now," he muttered. "I don't even know why I expected better." Then he hung up. The line went dead. Vivian sat there with the phone still pressed to her ear. The room was quiet again. But this time, the silence wasn't peaceful. It was heavy. She slowly lowered the phone onto the table. She didn't cry. She wanted to, but the tears wouldn't come. It was like her heart had heard this moment coming for years. And now that it was here, it wasn't surprised. It was just tired. Upstairs, the hallway closet stood open. The corner where the painting used to rest was empty. Vivian stood in front of it, hands clasped together, thinking about all the years she'd waited. All the moments she could have sent that bond. All the other ways she could have helped. And all the ways Silas had drifted further and further away. "I gave you your father," she whispered. "You called it garbage." She closed the closet door. The house creaked slightly as the wind pushed against the windows. Vivian turned off the lights and walked up to bed. She didn't sleep much that night. But for the first time in a long time, she stopped waiting for a call. Vivian Calloway didn't open her curtains the next morning. The sunlight felt too bright for a day like this. Her body moved slowly, more from sadness than age. She sat at the edge of her bed, hands on her knees, staring at the rug, hearing her son's words again. "You're just old and useless now." They echoed in her mind like a hammer that wouldn't stop swinging. She had done everything right. Raised him alone after Edric worked long hours. Fed him, clothed him, put him through college. Sacrificed her own comfort to help him buy his first house. And still, none of that mattered. Not a single memory when it came time for a simple thank you. No one knew about the bond except Edric and her. Not even their lawyer. Vivian hadn't given it to Silas earlier because she was waiting for him to show maturity. Waiting for a moment that said, "Yes, he's ready." She thought that moment had finally come. But now the painting was gone. And with it, the $12 million that Edric had trusted her to protect. Vivian didn't call Silas. Not that day. Not the day after. Instead, she stayed quiet. She made tea. She sat by the window. She watered her plants, dusted the shelves, folded clothes that didn't need folding. But everything felt hollow now. She had made peace with dying. The heart failure diagnosis had come quietly, like a knock she didn't want to answer. Her doctor said she had time, months, maybe years, but nothing was promised. And Vivian didn't want to waste the time she had left chasing a son who couldn't see her value. That night, she sat at the kitchen table with her old photo albums. Page after page, she turned memories like chapters. Silas as a toddler in the garden, Edric painting on the back porch, the three of them at the lake where they used to camp every summer. She stopped on one photo, Edric holding the finished painting. The same one Silas threw out. Her eyes welled up. But she didn't cry. She felt something else. Quiet. Final. In the city, 2 days after Silas received the painting, Monica rolled her eyes and handed it to their housekeeper. "Just take it out with the rest of the junk," she said. Angela, the housekeeper, paused. She liked Vivian. She remembered her kindness when she used to visit before the kids were born. Angela glanced at the painting, a calm lake, soft brushstrokes, clearly old but beautiful in a peaceful way. She didn't want to throw it away. So after work, she took it home and leaned it by her wall. It stayed there for 3 days. Then, while clearing out her hallway, she decided it didn't fit the space. She took it to a thrift shop 2 blocks away. The man at the counter offered her $5. She smiled and told him to keep it for free. That same week, a retired schoolteacher named Walter Gray was walking home from the pharmacy. He had no one waiting at home. No wife, no kids, just a quiet apartment and a radio that played old jazz in the evenings. As he passed by the thrift store window, something caught his eye. The painting. It reminded him of something, though he couldn't say what exactly. The light. The stillness. The way the water seemed to shimmer even in a dusty frame. He stepped inside and asked how much it was. $5, the clerk said. Walter paid in cash. That evening, Walter leaned the painting against the wall in his bedroom. He reached behind it to tighten the frame. It had come loose from the corner. That's when he noticed it. A slip of old brown tape. And beneath it an envelope. Sealed. Yellowed with age. He opened it carefully. Inside was a certificate. At first, he thought it was a receipt or maybe an old will. But as he read the printed words and saw the signatures, his hands began to shake. Bearer bond. $12 million. His heart raced. He checked the envelope 3 times. It was real. He wasn't dreaming. Walter didn't sleep that night. He sat at his table, reading the bond again and again, trying to make sense of it. Who would hide something like this? Then he noticed the initials, EC, in the corner of the painting. The next day, he looked up the artist's initials online. They led him to a small obituary from 5 years ago. Edric Calloway, a local artist and retired engineer, survived by his wife Vivian Calloway and son Silas Trent. Walter sat back in his chair, stunned. He thought about calling the son, but something about the obituary made him hesitate. Then he found another article, just a simple community post from 2 years ago. It mentioned Vivian donating books to a local school. She had included a note that said, "Always give quietly. That's when it means the most." Walter smiled to himself. He didn't call the son. He wrote a short letter instead and mailed it directly to Vivian Calloway. 3 days later, Vivian stood at her mailbox in her robe and slippers. She flipped through the usual stack of bills and newsletters. Then she saw it. A cream-colored envelope. No return address. Inside was a handwritten note. "I believe I found something meant for someone else. But that someone threw it away. I'd like to use part of it to build something lasting. The rest, I'm returning to you. Thank you for trusting silence." Vivian blinked hard, her heart pounding. Inside the envelope was a cashier's check. $6 million. Her legs gave out, and she sat on the porch step, hand over her chest, staring into the distance. The bond was found. Not by Silas. Not by anyone expecting it. But by someone who recognized quiet beauty. That night, she didn't call her son. She called her lawyer. She updated her will. Removed Silas from everything. Vivian Calloway sat on her porch step for a long time, holding the envelope in her lap. She had already read the letter twice. She had already counted the zeros on the check. But still, her hands wouldn't stop trembling. $6 million. It wasn't just the money. It was who it came from, a stranger. A man she had never met. Someone who found the painting in a thrift store, opened it, and realized what it meant, even though her own son never did. She didn't feel joy. Not right away. She felt something quieter. Relief. Closure. A soft, tired ache in her chest. The painting hadn't been wasted. Her husband's bond hadn't been lost. It had just taken the long way to be found. Vivian walked back into the house slowly, closed the door behind her, and locked it. Not because she was afraid. Because she was done. Done waiting for a phone call. Done hoping for gratitude. Done giving pieces of herself to someone who didn't want them. That night, she didn't cook dinner. She didn't water the plants. She didn't answer the phone when it rang. Instead, she pulled out her old will from the drawer in the back bedroom. The one her lawyer had helped her write years ago. It was still printed on soft cream paper with black ink, folded in thirds, her signature at the bottom. And there it was. To my son, Silas Trent, all assets, properties, and financial holdings upon my death. She stared at the words like they belonged to someone else. She opened a new folder. The next morning, she called her lawyer. "Ms. Calloway," he said kindly, "it's good to hear from you. How are you feeling?" "Lighter," she said. "And ready." He met her 2 days later at her home. She handed him the cashier's check and a new list of instructions. "I want it split in 3 parts," she told him. $2 million to go to children's scholarships under Edric's name. $2 million to renovate the old library downtown. And the last 2, I want to leave to the man who found it. His name is Walter Gray. The lawyer blinked. "You're sure?" "Absolutely." "And your son?" She looked out the window. "He'll get what he gave me." "Nothing." That evening, Vivian made a small dinner, just toast and eggs, and sat at the table alone. She lit 1 candle. Not for romance. For memory. The house was quiet, but not empty. Not anymore. For the first time in months, she felt like her husband was sitting across from her. Like his voice was in the walls, like his smile was in the candlelight. She spoke out loud. "He threw it away, Edric. But someone else saw it. And I finally let go." She didn't cry. This time, her hands were steady. The next week, the lawyer called her. Everything had been finalized. Her will was changed. Silas's name had been removed from all inheritance documents, all property records, all legal ties. Her house would be donated to a women's shelter after her passing. Her personal savings would go to music scholarships for underprivileged students. Her jewelry, her books, her personal keepsakes, she donated all of it quietly. She kept only a small box of letters, a few photos, and 1 sweater Edric used to wear on rainy mornings. The rest no longer mattered. She wasn't leaving behind stuff. She was leaving behind meaning. Silas had no idea. He didn't call. He didn't ask about the painting again. To him, it had been garbage. His mother had been too dramatic anyway. He told Monica that if she didn't stop talking about it, he'd just throw the next gift straight in the fire. Monica rolled her eyes and changed the subject. Their world moved on without realizing what they had lost. Meanwhile, across the city, Walter Gray walked into a lawyer's office with trembling hands. He had received a letter and a phone call that morning. The letter had Vivian's name. The call came from her lawyer. "Mr. Gray," the voice had said, "we'd like to schedule a time for you to accept your portion of Ms. Calloway's inheritance. She's asked that $2 million be transferred to your account as a gift of honor." Walter stood frozen in the middle of his tiny kitchen. "I don't deserve that," he said. "She believes you do," the voice replied. When he came to sign the papers, Vivian didn't speak much. She just smiled. "You reminded me that strangers can still see value in what others throw away." Walter nodded, emotional. "You reminded me that kindness still means something." They didn't hug. But as he left, she placed a wrapped box in his hands. "It's a painting," she said. "Not worth millions this time. But it's one of Edric's. I think it belongs with you now." Walter's eyes watered. "Thank you. For everything." She nodded. Thank you for not walking past it. That night, Vivian sat on the back porch with a sweater over her shoulders. The wind was soft. The sky was pink with sunset. She closed her eyes and let the air brush her face. She felt lighter. Finished. Ready. She had nothing more to give. And she was finally okay with that. 2 months had passed since Vivian Calloway removed her son's name from her will. She no longer thought about Silas when she woke up in the morning. She didn't check her phone for missed calls. She didn't wonder if he would apologize. She had stopped hoping. Instead, she filled her days with quiet routines. She painted in the afternoons again, small pieces, flowers, quiet lakes, morning skies. Not for sale. Not for anyone else. Just for herself. She donated most of them to local hospitals and care centers. The only painting she kept was the very last one Edric had started. He never finished it. Half the canvas was blank. Vivian left it that way and hung it in her bedroom. She told herself some stories are meant to be unfinished. One morning, while she was reading on the porch, her phone rang. She didn't recognize the number, but something in her gut told her to answer. Hello. A voice she hadn't heard in weeks came through, shaky, rushed, and angry. Mom, what the hell did you do? Vivian didn't say anything at first. She just let the silence stretch. I saw the article, Silas continued, about the painting. About the donation. You gave away the money. Vivian stayed calm. You threw it away, she said quietly. How was I supposed to know there was something inside it? You never said anything. And you never asked. There was a pause. Then, you don't get to just erase me from everything. That money was mine. Vivian closed her book and looked out at the garden. No, Silas. It was never yours. It was a gift from your father. I was just the messenger. You rejected it the moment you called it garbage. Silas scoffed. So that's it? You're cutting me off? Your own son. Vivian's voice didn't shake. I gave you something that carried meaning. You wanted money instead. You didn't just reject the gift. You rejected who it came from. You rejected your father. Silas fell silent for a few seconds. So what now? I get nothing. Vivian didn't raise her voice. She didn't yell or cry. You already got what you valued. You got freedom from me. You got to walk away. So keep walking. Then she said 6 words that ended the call. And the story. I gave you a painting. You threw it away. Click. She hung up. She didn't save the number. That night, Vivian walked around her home slowly, her fingers brushing the tops of photo frames and old books. She stood in front of the half-finished painting again. Edric's strokes stopped halfway across the canvas. She ran her hand along the edge, smiled softly, and whispered, You were right. He had always believed that character mattered more than inheritance. He had always trusted that silence would reveal the truth. Across town, Silas sat at his kitchen table in a fury. The article had said the painting had been bought at a thrift store for $5. $5. The article also said the buyer had used part of the funds to open the Calloway Learning Center, a library and community space for underprivileged children. The rest had been donated to scholarships, all under Edric's name. There had even been a small note included in the report. True wealth isn't something you're given. It's something you recognize when it comes wrapped in love. Silas wanted to scream. But no one cared now. The story was out there. The bond was gone. The money wasn't his. And the only person who could have helped him understand any of it, he had called her useless. 1 year later, Vivian passed away peacefully in her sleep. There was no funeral announcement in the papers. Only a small group gathered. Nurses from the clinic she donated to, children from the art program she funded, and a handful of people whose lives she had touched quietly. Walter Gray was there too. He stood beside the donated painting that had changed both their lives. He placed a single white flower at its base and whispered, Thank you for seeing what others missed. After her passing, the new scholarship fund in Vivian and Edric's name began sending out letters to high school students across the state. Each envelope read, Your future is inside this envelope. Someone you never met believed in you. Don't throw it away. Back at Silas's apartment, another package arrived, this one from the lawyer. It contained a single piece of paper. No money. No assets. Just a copy of the new will, with his name removed. At the bottom, in Vivian's handwriting, was one final message. I once tried to hand you a legacy. You crumpled it. So I handed it to someone who knew what to do with it. Years later, the Calloway Learning Center expanded into 3 cities. Each library had the same painting hanging in the main lobby: a lake, a sunset, soft brushstrokes. And beneath each frame, a small plaque, donated in memory of Vivian Calloway. She gave everything quietly, and never asked for it back.